Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Somerford Associates Technology Podcast. We're having a series of conversations with experts about technologies that will solve your problems. And so we dive into them, we get some practical examples out there, and we're hoping to make them relevant for you and the challenges you're in at the moment. I'm Anne. I'm the Solutions Technical Director of Somerford Associates, and today I'm talking to Richard Barber, Head of Splunk Cloud for EMEA. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this. It's I know we've been talking about it for a while, but honestly, it's great to be here.
Basically, we thought that we should talk at this time. It's sort of post-pandemic or during pandemic. There's going to be a lot of squeeze on people's resources. So getting rapid time to value, getting the best use of all of your IT suite and your products, Splunk may well be one of them. It's a really prevalent topic. So that's what we're aiming to talk about, and any other challenges you think are, current at the moment, Richard.
Definitely. I think we can see from the conversations we're having with our customers right now, the pandemic's really highlighted challenges which may have been there anyway, but it's just put pressure on those things and actually accelerated a lot of conversations which customers were maybe having anyway about things like, hey, I'm open to cloud. Now it's, okay, we've been forced to look at remote working. We've been forced to look at cloud. We've been forced to look at the security wrapper around all of that, etc., and try and focus our people in the right places, of course, to have the biggest impact, because none of us want to be spending more money than we have to right now.
No, absolutely. So for listeners who don't know you, could you just give a brief background to how you got to your position in Splunk and what you were doing beforehand, all that?
Yeah, sure. So I've pretty much since I left university, which seems like a long time ago now, I've been in the software world, and I was very lucky to kind of work for a couple of companies before Splunk, which gave me some good groundings and exposed me to a lot of different vendors, software types, business areas, etc., which was phenomenal. But I'll kind of cut to Splunk. My background has been very much on the kind of sales and commercial side of things. And actually, prior to my current role, I was in a field sales role in the UK, so very much commercially minded in that sense. However, the reason I moved to Splunk Cloud at that time was very much I saw a couple of my customers that had really got it. And they were there with cloud, they understood the benefits of it, and they understood that was kind of the future. And so when the opportunity opened up to take this role on, not only did it scratch the itch of maybe doing a bit more than just the sales element and really getting involved in what at that time and still today really feels like a kind of startup mentality in terms of super rapid growth, finding problems, solving them quickly, etc. Getting involved in numerous sides of the business, from marketing to product to PS, you name it, and still getting to speak to our amazing customers. I mean, I was never going to say no to that, right? And so I've been doing that now for about 3.5 years.
So for people who don't know Splunk intimately, it used to be a solely enterprise solution, but now this Splunk Cloud bit is that your IS, your infrastructure as a service. Would you call it SaaS? I don't know.
I would call it SaaS. I know it's a bit of a loaded term because lots of people, it's a really good question, by the way, because lots of people think of SaaS being one thing or another, and actually lots of people have different interpretations of what it means to be SaaS. But fundamentally, if you think about Splunk as a software and we're offering it as a service for you to consume, I mean, it fits that acronym.
It fits the bill. Exactly, that's what it says on the tin. So throughout in your role then, you've spoken to clients and you've helped, thousands of people interested in Splunk to find the right way to use it. And I think it mostly splits into, from my perspective, I see it as Splunk helping with security solutions and also with observability across the business. Is that a good way to categorize it in your mind?
Yeah, I think Splunk's been an interesting company to work for because it's always been able to solve so many different challenges. It's kind of approached things very much from a data-centric viewpoint of, hey, you've got data. There's probably answers in there. They're very difficult to get, historically, because you kind of needed to figure out what that question was and then go and get the right data for it. Whereas we took the approach of, hey, let's get the data in there. And when you think of the right questions to ask, no problem, ask it of that data, at its fundamental level. And of course, the customers, our questions then asked of that data were, yes, it was around, IT operations. It was around security. It was around analytics. And you hear some of the use cases are like monitoring fighter jets or McLaren F1 and these kind of things, right? But actually, the large majority of our customers is doing the more run-of-the-mill security and IT elements. And over the last few years, we've made obviously some interesting acquisitions which have really broadened that portfolio to complementary things like Phantom for SOAR, so orchestration, and signal effects for, as you just said there, that observability side of things as well. And we're really ending up at this kind of platform area for data where no matter where it is, what it is, etc., you can. We use the tagline, listen to your data. But it really is that mindset of let's give you a platform for data with all the surrounding pieces to be able to put the right things in there, ask questions at any time of any data and be able to get the relevant answer to you.
So actually, that data-centric platform, is that becoming more required of people to start looking at that data more? Is that one of the...
It is. And I think the pandemic specifically put a very acute focus on, let's take a really easy example, right? VPN, Zoom, or Teams, or whatever your flavor of like remote work was, right? But all of a sudden, you were scaling from, I don't know, maybe a couple of hundred people to potentially, in some cases, our customers were scaling from, as I said, like a couple of hundred to tens of thousands of people suddenly on Zoom. And therefore being able to monitor that from a security perspective, understand what the performance of that was like, and be able to proactively start to identify where issues may be occurring. And then you wrap that in, as I said, with things like the VPN and every other kind of piece that links to remote work. All of a sudden, you have a whole host of technologies where customers maybe weren't monitoring them in that way or in that depth because they weren't as business critical before. Sure, we were all monitoring probably the performance of your email because if your CEO got an email late or delayed or it went down, right, or he couldn't access it on his mobile or her mobile, you were having a bad day in IT, but we weren't necessarily doing the same level on all these other pieces. So there are specific technology types out there which maybe it's added a level of focus on there. The idea of data being important to businesses is not new. I don't think the pandemic's changed that, but I think it's added complexity and it's also accelerated many customers, and I hinted to this earlier, many customers move to cloud. And I don't mean Splunk Cloud, I mean just cloud generally and cloud-based technologies because they've had to, and because, of course, they've had to move quickly, and sometimes there's only one way to do that, and that is through cloud-based technologies. And that brings complexity fundamentally. We see that before the pandemic, and as I said, this has really accelerated it. Cloud equals complexity because all of a sudden, there's a ton of different vendors, a ton of different data types, sources, locations, formats it's coming in, and you don't control all of them, right? You can't say to AWS or GCP, give me my data in this format. I want my logs to look exactly like this. You're not developing them. You don't own them in that sense. So you kind of got to take it as it is. And therefore you need, sorry, this is slightly elongated, but therefore you need monitoring to be able to take in that kind of diverse and complex different data sets to be able to give you a simple view.
Yeah, and Splunk's awesome about that. Anything unstructured, anything, and then you can sort of massage it to the way you need to see it as well. But you sort of hinted at another one that I think, if we look forward as well, now everyone's accelerating towards cloud, and if you were only on your journey with Splunk, starting with Splunk Cloud as a SaaS would be a good call because that's very rapid to get value from it. But then now you're in a situation where you have tons of cloud providers, different vendors with overlapping kind of uses. And is there a sort of drive towards, and perhaps a recession, like tool consolidation?
I think there has to be. And again, I can only talk about what I see within our customer base, and certainly the opinions we're starting to form from that, or certainly I start to form from that, I should say, which is that there was a general move to cloud anyway, and that was pushing a change to the required tooling. And most businesses don't want to operate, 5 different monitoring tools if one can do the job, because there's something to be said for simplicity and consistency in terms of where do I look to get the answer for this. And I think you've kind of nailed it there in the sense of from a cost perspective. None of us want the overhead of the 5 different tools, 5 different support contracts, 5 different sets of training and enablement I need my admins to be to go and do and stay on top of, 5 different lots of upgrades, everything that goes with that. And actually, we're seeing now, especially with the kind of the signal effects piece coming into the fold, and the ITSI element. So for those that don't know, our kind of more service intelligence piece of the business, really come together and provide this kind of nice visibility of, it doesn't matter what, is it in the cloud, is it on-prem, etc. piece, which ultimately historic players in this space have really struggled with. So there is certainly a tools consolidation piece that we're starting to see people lean into that maybe hasn't come to full fruition yet, but they're certainly discussing it. And I think that's come from, as we said, the pressure, ultimately, financially, of needing to.
Yeah. And the monitoring agnostically from, data from anywhere is that niche to Splunk? Is certainly a message I'm familiar with from Splunk, but I don't know about other competitors.
Yeah, I mean, it would be unfair to say that no other competitor out there can take data from more than one place. Like that's just not fair, right? There absolutely are competitors out there, but there's no one that can so easily take it from so many different places. What we typically see is, and again, I don't want to sell too many other competitors here, but you take, I mean, a really good example, right, would be something like, one of the security solutions from one of those big cloud IS providers like Microsoft, Google, and you look at, okay, what data sources can you take in? They're really good at their native stuff. And if you only ever use their cloud platform, amazing. They can take in some data from other places, but there's also some stuff they just can't. And so most customers are right now looking at like some kind of multi-cloud strategy. They don't want to be tied just to one vendor forever and a day. There's that what if, and there's a whole host of reasons why you probably don't just want one flavor. And actually, many customers will want to retain stuff on premise still for quite a while as well. So we're in a really unique position to be able to do that and say, look, no matter what you choose, we'll be there for you. We'll be able to take in your analysis of it, and you'll be able to understand the impact to your business in a nice single pane of glass. And that for me is unique. That is, it's not even a niche, right? Because it's such a big thing. But that for me is unique and puts us really well placed as the world continues to evolve. And we talk about things like IoT devices, right? You look back even 5 years, and IoT was a thing, but not as prevalent as it is today. And you look back over the last 12, 24 months, and we look at electric cars, we look at manufacturing devices, we look at transportation and what's happening there. We look at our own homes and
our refrigerators, everything.
Exactly, right. There's these devices are everywhere. I mean, be it your Dyson Hoover, your lights, your refrigerators, as you said, they're everywhere, and that's just only going to increase. So you don't know what data format you're going to end up with. You don't know what their data source is going to look like. So do you want to approach that from a platform perspective, which is open, and says, hey, we can take it from anywhere, no matter what it looks like? Or do you want to say, hey, go with a platform which is like, yes, I'm good with what you have right now, but if you do something different, it might not work.
So I've got drawn out on my little piece of paper whilst we're chatting the challenges that people are going through. I've got like this arrow going into, there's already a general move to cloud and we're accelerating that. But it's mostly people are going multi-cloud and hybrid with prem to, spread their risk, I suppose. And then also, weirdly, there's a simplicity drive to reduce, from a cost perspective, or also just simplicity of operations, the use of that data, and the kind of monitoring on top of all of the applications, which Splunk is a good way to go across them all. What else does Splunk or Splunk Cloud offer for these challenges? Not just in terms of what the technology does. Do you have any other kind of things that you do to help, like the proof of concepts or the CSMs?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yeah, we're trying to set ourselves up as a business which allows customers to adopt quickly and be successful quickly. Because if we have successful customers, they are customers that are happy, that renew, that buy more, right? It's just a good business model. If you have good customers who want to do more business with you, you tend to be successful. So yeah, our whole company is really set up with that mindset of customers first. Let's figure out how we get them rapid adoption ultimately and rapid success to their end state. And a lot of the time, it may start with something as simple as, even in the, for want of a better way of putting it, and sorry for putting it this way, but the sales cycle. I mean, equally, it's a buying cycle, right? But the sales cycle, and you might be doing workshops with our specialist teams from security or ITOM around, hey, look, what does your end state look like? And what's the roadmap to get there? And that we can give then guidance on what data sources might you need that you may or may not monitor and take into some kind of tooling today. What might you need to supplement outside of just Splunk, right? What do we see as best practice generally? So we can make some recommendations all the way through the sales cycle. We have our value consulting team who can help you build that business case, quantify it. And actually, I would wholeheartedly recommend customers don't just do that before they buy, but come back and look at that in 6 to 12 months' time and say, well, did I get the value I expected out of this? Was it more? Was it less? And why was that? And that starts to then really validate business cases for as you start to build and add more. But from a experience of then when you start using Splunk, I mean, we have something within Splunk Cloud especially, which is called Autobahn. It's funny, because Autobahn was intended to be an internal name, but it ended up being so catchy that it just ended up being customer facing. So it was that whole premise of ultimately, the Autobahn has no speed limits. We want you to go down it fast, safe, and successfully get from point A to point B. And it's this idea of, hey, we will work with you, provide you with a customer brochure, which is relatively prescriptive in terms of use cases that we've identified to be, super successful but impactful at our customers. When we've done all these POVs with our thousands of customers previously, what are the things that customers tend to ask for and why?
Oh, so it filters out all of the, from your knowledge of loads of people using Splunk, what are the ones that everyone asks for? And you put that into the Autobahn and you kind of just accelerate through it.
Exactly that idea. It's kind of a blend of what are the ones that people ask for because they're important to our customers, and also what can we deliver quickly and easily from both sides, right? Without the customer having to invest tons of time and resource into this. So there's that piece to it. I mean, we fund effectively free PS to help onboard that data, make sure that's done to best practice, and you end up ultimately with an environment which you can roll into production. So it's a Splunk Cloud environment with your live data in there, delivering high value use cases, which we encourage you to ultimately use as if it was a production environment, whilst you hopefully go through the process of actually making a purchase. So even before purchase, you're hands-on, you're adopting, and what we used to see.
So can you just flick a switch and it goes, you've done it in this Autobahn environment in Splunk Cloud, and you don't have to migrate anything once
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's because we used to see this weird scenario, right, where you do a proof of value with the customer. They'd love it. There was that moment where they're ready, they're adopting it. They're getting loads of value out of it. It's solving problems for them. Phenomenal. And then it went into like procurement or whatever. And, a month later, they actually bought it, or 2 months later, or 6 months later in worst case scenarios, right? And you just start again. And, they've forgotten what they did with it. The configurations need to be ported out. You may as well just start from scratch. And all of that excitement, all of that knowledge, all of that adoption, you just started over. And what we really try to achieve with Autobahn is to say, hey, well, don't don't stop. Keep using it, keep adopting it, and we'll fund that environment for a reasonable amount of time to give you the ability to actually raise that order and keep using it. And exactly as you said, I mean, it'd be unfair to my ops team to just say flick a switch. They'd probably shoot me if I suggested it was quite so easy. But ultimately, it's that same environment, that same configurations.
From the customer's perspective, it is flicking switch. I mean, how much extra work we do behind the scenes to make that happen is besides the point. If from the customer's point of view, they order it, they buy it, and then they carry on logging in the same place.
Yeah, same login details, same URL, same data. Nothing gets wiped in that sense. It's all there. And yes, you might have professional services that come later to do more configurations, implementation, etc. Because clearly it was a proof of value. You're going to have more use cases you want to deploy, but those use cases you deployed in the proof of value, that you can keep using those, that you're already 10, 20, 30%, depending on what your end state looks like along the way in that journey. And that's honestly been phenomenal in terms of seeing customers' reactions to that, because what we have also seen, talking about rapid adoption here, is an understanding, or probably better put, a belief of, or a leap of faith in the sense that they go, actually, I see that I can adopt quickly with this. I see how quick that can be. I've got use cases stood up from, getting my data ready to actually delivering value to my business in like 2 weeks. That's incredible. And I was thinking it was going to take me 2 years to ramp to whatever other use cases, right? Well, actually, no, I think I can probably do that in a matter of months, not years. And so all of a sudden you have this moment where customers just get it, and they stand behind it, and they make commitments from their side in terms of time, resource, money, etc., because they actually believe that value and those use cases are going to be there. And it's just phenomenal to then see them come back 6 months later and be like, actually, we've got more things we'd like to do now, please. There's more value we want to get out of the platform. And I hate to say it, because obviously I have cloud in my business title, so I'm clearly biased, but we just didn't see that in a world where somebody bought a license, and they waited for hardware to come up, or even if they were putting it on an IaaS provider, start to architect it, deploy it, maintain it, you name it, right? We just don't see that rapid adoption the same way of coming back and adding increasing use cases, even within a 12-month period. Some of our best examples see customers come back maybe 3 different times. They've bought what they thought they needed, and they've delivered it.
And they get so much value out of it. They decide quick enough, oh, I need more.
They've completely adopted it.
Well, we got a good example of that, actually. They were a university in the UK, and last year we did a sort of 8-week zero to seam with them. And so they didn't have any seam solution. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, with our through our PS, and we're also training them up on how to use it and how to set it up, we got that up and running. They have the similar adoption now with their ITSI, so their IT Service Insights. So, and again, it's just knowing what we have some sessions with our experts and with them, or with Splunk, and do a sort of what's possible, what's the art of the possible with ITSI, and well, what can we do right now with the data we've got in? What else can we bring in easily? So a bit of a data onboarding, and then and get some really good value in for their clearing, which is a big part of the university cycle. So I do very much like Splunk Cloud's way of working.
And a question to you, because I mean, you guys have worked with Splunk for years. You're one of the most established partners that we have, but you also got on that Splunk Cloud bandwagon pretty early and took the time to really learn about it. So you've seen both sides, and from my perspective, one of the biggest reasons I see customers' ability to adopt in that way and get value so quickly is because not even really down to the difference in getting the environment stood up in the first place. There is obviously an increased pace to that, but actually when it comes to those later growth cycles, it tends to be more because they're, that those super valuable stuff, those people that you trained, you've invested in, you spent ages hiring, etc., are spending their time on things like building out new use cases, going around the businesses, understanding how they can add more value to their company in areas like innovation, efficiencies, you name it, with Splunk. And they're spending their time on that rather than platform management, which then opens up this whole new ability to just get more out of it, whether that be with what's already in there or more, but get more out of it. So I think that for me has always been one of those really eye-opening things when you speak to a customer who's been a cloud customer for a while and ideally came from doing this on premise, right? And all of a sudden they've gone, oh, this is amazing.
I don't have to do that anymore with my capacity. Well, it does make sense if you're going to design the roles. So Splunk take care of the infrastructure and all of that sort of side of things, and client takes care of their data and stuff that they know about more. That makes sense a lot. And what Somerford sometimes pitches in the really complicated stuff. So for a large retail company recently, we did like a huge cloud migrations because they'd had a merger. So stuff where it's just, it's not going to happen ever again, call in the experts. But, for the day-to-day running and for the increasing your use cases and getting value out of the data, you can then focus on, the client can focus on that rather than, I don't know, upgrading their server or whatever else they kind of have to do if they're looking after it on-prem.
Exactly that. And that excites me. Because you see this same as me day in, day out. Our customers are incredible. The things that they think of doing. It's what originally pushed us into the security space, right? We way back when I joined Splunk 7.5 years ago, we were pretty much just a log monitoring platform, and we were starting to do some more interesting things. But it was our customers that pushed us into that security space and go, hang on a minute. You could be really good here. You can be really helpful to do like forensic investigation, etc. And then all of a sudden, they're building these kind of SIEM type functionalities on top of it, and we go, "Hang on, there's something to this, right?" Now, again, I'm doing our kind of technology experts and product experts a disservice because I'm sure they had a roadmap and a vision for it. But fundamentally, it's incredible what you see customers do when they're giving the time and the opportunity to really look at that data and figure out what they can do with it.
Yeah, and it's all pulled from. I like that community side of things in Splunk. We all have apps, we all build them, and then we put them up on Splunk base, and then we can all use them. Is that lovely community feel on it?
Yeah, and that's always been one of the. I guess sometimes, back in the day, think about when I was in the field, right? And you would have a customer who's like come from using another tool, and they go, "Well, we got 5,000 dashboards in that. How many dashboards do you have?" And it's just like, well, out of the box, like none. But there's all these free applications out there, which like, what do you want to do, customer? Do you? And they go, "Oh, I'm really interested in Cisco firewalls." Okay, cool. Well, look, Cisco's got an app out there, and it does that. Well, what about FireEye? Well, look, just so happens FireEye's out there. And what about X and Y? And oh yeah, we've probably got apps for that as well. And there's all this kind of pre-built views, dashboards, alerts, etc., which ultimately any customer can go out there and utilize. And in Splunk Cloud, this is some of the things that sometimes a customer finds challenging, especially when they're coming from on-premise to our cloud solution, is not every app is vetted. And of course, we need to vet an app today to make sure it's safe, secure, etc., before it goes on the Splunk Cloud. So we want to make sure ultimately it works and you're having the right experience and it doesn't break anything as much as we can, right, from an automation perspective. But it doesn't mean that not every app is vetted. But actually, I guess just to address that, what we do see is there's a really long tail to all the apps on the app base. You see a whole host of them are used a load, and then there's like 2 downloads for like thousands.
Well, see, what we do as a partner, if you get Splunk through us, we kind of pre-vet apps for people, so it just reduces that time and the risk that you'll send it into the support function to be vetted to go into Splunk Cloud, and it might get rejected. It won't if you just have a quick check with like Somerford.
That's it, right? Actually, if you just follow best practice, you use the self-service check tools, and if it's more complicated, you use people like yourselves, ultimately, who are the experts in this. It's not a painful process. The problem is when people don't do those things, it can be complicated. And actually, certainly our vision for Splunk Cloud and Splunk generally is to make as much self-service as possible. So really remove all of those barriers. I mean, we've spent the last few years really focusing on the underpinning platform to make sure the experience is phenomenal. And that it's rock solid, and maybe we don't have all the SaaS features that when I said earlier about what is SaaS, it means lots of different things, but fundamentally the platform is rock solid, and we can really stand behind it. We should also in turn increase things like customer experience and really improve that, and it should feel increasingly like I suppose what many people would term a traditional SaaS solution. So it's an exciting time for us.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And it has all of the functions that you would expect on-prem as well, like the machine learning toolkit and things, I presume.
Exactly that.
So yeah, exciting times in Splunk.
Definitely is, and I think what you'll see increasingly from us, right? I mean, we've been talking about like mission control for a while now, which is basically going to be a new side to our security portfolio. And again, I'm not a security expert here, right? So I. At a very high level, it's going to start to give you a holistic visibility over, for example, multiple security deployments within your environment. That could be, for example, Splunk Cloud with ES and on-prem with ES. But imagine it as a single pane of glass over the top of everything. And as that evolves, it will add in things like automation, etc. as well. So that is going to launch as a cloud-only product when it comes. And that's no secret. We've spoken about that openly. Signal Effects is a cloud-only product, and we certainly that's where we're putting our time, effort, and money, because ultimately it gives us an ability to ensure the customer experience is high quality, it's doing what it should do, and we can own any issues with it, right? And equally, therefore, the resolutions with it to help make sure that experience is as good as it should be, and that customers can get what they need to out of the tool.
But look, thank you so much for your time. I think that we've covered over a wide-ranging point of how people are needing to move to cloud rapidly, or needing to get value out of their products rapidly, and needing that simplicity as well. So I very much appreciate your time in explaining it all from the Splunk perspective. But yeah, thank you very much, Richard, for your time.
No, a real pleasure, honestly. And I guess my ask to anyone listening to this is, if you thought Splunk was too expensive, approach us. There's new, different price models out there that might be more appropriate to you. If you thought Splunk Cloud isn't for you, have that conversation with us, because you'd be surprised the number and type of customers that are now on that platform, where they're the types of customers you would never think would be using cloud and our SaaS solution, and yet they've been comfortable with the security and the quality of the platform, etc. And ultimately, they come back and they adopt quicker than any of our other customers. So that's I guess the message I would take. It's good for you as a customer to really take the time to understand whether or not it could be a fit for you.
Do you mind people reaching you in LinkedIn?
Happy to. Yeah, no problem. I will. I'm not always the best at staying on top of it, but more than happy to take any messages and reach outs, please. That's probably the best forum for it.
So if you want any more questions answered, please do reach out to either of us on LinkedIn, and I'll put our names underneath on this podcast release. And also you could go to marketing@somerfordassociates.com if you like, and I'll get you straight in touch.
So thanks for listening to the Somerford podcast. I'm Anne. I'll see you next time.